Guess what? It's Friday and we're back for another WordPress Friday Hangout. What's up, Victor? Feels like it's been a year.
It's Friday. Yeah,
Friday,
WordCamp
sorry.
US, WordCamp Europe, and then I missed WordCamp US because I wasn't even feeling up, and now everyone else was sick. So yeah, a lot of domino of missing the
Yeah.
last one.
Yeah, I think it's been about 2 months since we've had a show because, about a month ago was WordCamp US, or exactly a month ago, right? It was WordCamp US. So,
Uh-huh.
and we have some guests here. So let's do a quick round of intros. Bring on our guests. We'll start off with the infamous Raquel. Why don't you tell everyone who you are, what you do, what you're doing on WordPress Friday Hangout?
Hey everybody, I'm Raquel Manriquez, and I'm the community manager for Elegant Themes, and I am WordPress community extraordinaire. Love this community, pour into this community, and love it. No matter what happens, I love it. I'm a masochist, apparently, and I'm here to just hang out with you guys and talk WordPress community, all the things.
She's so subtle. She's really a WordCamp rock star, right? Like everyone knows Raquel.
Uh-huh.
I love
everybody.
I love everybody. That's why they just love me because I love them.
Definitely in your element at WordCamp, so we'll get into that. And then we also have Alfredo. What's up, Alfredo?
Hello. My name is Alfredo Navas. I am from Costa Rica. I'm a senior front-end developer in WebDevStudios, and
Hey, I've heard of them.
Yeah, and I've been doing a lot of WordPress stuff for a while already.
Awesome.
Speaker in WordCamps a lot. I travel. I love to go to WordCamps. So yeah.
Yeah, we're excited to have you both on. I've got a couple topics. We are three of us, all of us except for Victor, were at WordCamp US. So I thought we might touch on that a little bit and dig into WordCamps. I know it was a month ago, but we haven't had a chance to talk about it since we were all there. I thought we could kind of dig in a little bit. I'd love to get your thoughts on the event, how it went. Alfredo, all of us have been to a lot of WordCamps over the years, so we have a lot of kind of historical knowledge of how WordCamps go, especially some of the bigger ones. But what's your take on it, Raquel, Alfredo? I mean, did you like it? Did you hate it? Did it feel like WordCamps of old, or are we still trying to get our footing back after the last few years?
I was like,
Look at the grin.
Let me just pass it over to Raquel.
Okay.
Ladies first.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, there was definitely, I feel like a overall, like part of it felt very like old school. Like, there was like 2,000 tickets sold and it was big. We're all together. Brad was there. April was there. And that automatically feels, like, oh, yay. There were so many people. And I love that. I just love connecting with everybody. And a part of me doesn't love it because like when I'm connecting with somebody, I know I'm missing out connecting with somebody else, but that's also me. I want to say hi to everybody. So, I mean, that part, it was amazing, right? Like having everybody there. I guess this kind of morphed, but overall, I loved that feeling. There were some things that I didn't love about it, but maybe we could get into that in a little bit, but it was so nice having a big event again. That was just such a relief.
It was big. Did we ever hear final numbers of how many people actually attended? I know like you said, there were around 2,000 tickets, I think, sold, but I don't know how many actually checked in.
I think 1,600 checked in.
1,600. So that's still, I mean, that's a very good size. I mean, it's bigger than pretty much all regional WordCamps, right? But probably a little bit smaller than some of the WordCamp US's of past. But still, that's a good size event for a WordCamp.
Yeah, not quite as big as Europe, but yeah, good size.
We'll get there, Europe. Don't worry. All right. Yeah, Europe's a little bit bigger. But Alfredo, how do you overall thoughts, opinions on the event? How did it line up for you?
I mean, from where I come, go to such big event, it's always amazing. I mean, for me, it was great meeting a lot of people that you interact via Twitter, but never have the chance to, to talk with them. I mean, I'm Latin, so I always, jump into people, and the people was like, who are you? And I said, oh, no, sorry, I follow you on Twitter. I love what you do, so yeah, it's fun. I mean, the event was great. I love the swags. That's something I always love. I don't know why. But yeah, for me, it was great. I mean, there was a lot of people. I actually meet with a few coworkers that, we work remote. So sometimes, it's been years, the last when I met, one of my coworkers for years, and oh man, finally, meet you in person. So it was great. Even the talks were awesome.
The venue was wild. It was at a Gaylord National Resort and Convention Center, and I guess there's a few of them all over the country. I'd never been to one, but really massive venue. Like I really like events where like the hotel and the where the event's going to be are all in one, because it just keeps everyone kind of in the same area and less spread out. So whether you're at the event or you're grabbing a coffee or you're just sitting around, you're kind of just constantly see people and be around people that you want to talk with, versus where it's at separate places and you just don't kind of get that feel. So it's nice when it's all together, but it was a massive space. I think that was one of the negatives I heard overall. Was a positive and a negative. Negative in the sense of things were just spread out. Like the sponsor hall was like down a couple levels and off from everything else. So you had to kind of take a trek to get over to it. But once you got there, I mean, it was great. It was huge. They had tons of space, lots of setups for all the sponsors and plenty of room to tables to spread out and hang out and stuff. But I mean, the venue was wild. I think I heard someone from Europe say it's like the most American thing they've ever seen, that whole area, because the whole area around it was just like all brand new, like all built in the last how many years. This whole like town basically was just built there around nothing, which is pretty cool. But what do you think venue wise? Good, bad? Did you like it?
I mean, for the points you just spoke on, yeah, like the fact that most of us were all together, that was lovely. I love that you don't really have to leave. You could just get everything there, and that, yeah, kind of wherever you are, you're going to run into somebody. Absolutely love that, all about it. And, the conference itself, it was totally fine. Like where the sponsor, at least the sponsor hall, and where the sessions were, like in regards to the logistics of just the space itself, was wonderful, but absolutely not on the spreading out. It was like you literally went from one end of the entire ginormous building to the opposite end of the corner. And for me, as someone who organizes a lot of WordCamps, it's like sponsors, that's like the worst thing you can do for a sponsor, is to not make it like the place to be. Like the way WordCamp should be is everything should be centered around the sponsors. Everything that needs to be like Grand Central Station, and then you take a hike to a session. That's like how WordCamp should be set up. But
I remember the first WordCamp when we did the first two WordCamp USs in Philadelphia. I thought the setup was great because it was at the convention center in Philly, and then one of the sponsors are basically like in a really big hallway, so on kind of both sides of the hallway. And then to get to one of the tracks, you basically had to walk through the sponsor hallway. So people were walking through the sponsor area all day long just to get back and forth to the different presentation tracks, which was, to your point, was great because it always had a lot of foot traffic, a lot of people around the sponsors. They were packed the whole time and they were jammed. So, and it kind of forced that flow, which it seemed to work pretty well. So it's a good point. Like sponsors are there. The sponsors are the reasons the events are happening. So you want to make sure they get as much face time with people and foot traffic as they can.
They carry camps.
Yeah, Europe was like that. Where in Europe, you had WordCamp Europe. You walk through the venue to get to every single. And it was interesting. Yeah, the speaker spaces, or I guess there was like a lounge area, like the green room. Everything was on the lower floor, and the sponsors were like elevated. So it was a different setup. But I'll also say that's something there was another event I recently went to that was not well done, not a WordCamp one. And my little brother, who worked in space development, and he works for big startups, doing all of their bookings and their office space. And unless you're doing site, I think that's a hard thing for WordCamps, right? Because WordCamp US and WordCamp Europe, right? The city's elected. And a lot of the people that are volunteering to put that together, they don't know how to do a site visit, right? Like I used to work in nightclubs and bars, and I know how to walk through a venue and be like, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. This isn't going to work, right? And unless you have someone, and the ability to do site visits, because a lot of these places now they don't even have, they're limited on staff. They're limited on, and they don't have 3D renders. They don't have up-to-date floor plans. So it's a tough thing to do. And you get lucky, not to plug Phoenix, but Phoenix has a great space. I feel like a couple, there's certain cities that I've been to, they just always have a great space. But some places, they're not built around the way that our model might work.
Raquel loves to hear the Phoenix praise.
I will say that for WordCamp US, the past two iterations post-pandemic, have not been planned by actual WordPress contributors. It's been, well, the site and all that has been very, very secretive in how it's been chosen. So I literally, I don't know. And I know that for San Diego, they use professional like event planning.
Well, then it sounds like someone needs to get a refund. Then if that's the problem, then it sounds like we're not picking good vendors. So
yeah, and I'm not sure, but then I heard that that's no longer the case for WordCamp US. But WordCamp Europe, however, I do think there's a little bit of the old school way of like where the city.
What was that?
Is that a motorcycle going through your living room?
What that was.
There's a term whenever I hear. I live in downtown Phoenix where there's a lot of everyone's got to show off their vehicles, and there's a very crude term that I say whenever I see that happen, and I will refrain from saying that on this show. But anyway, that's what just happened. So, but yeah, back to it. Yes, to your point, Victor, a lot of us knew how to do site visits, and that is how Phoenix is. So it's kind of like, it's not exactly we got lucky. It's just that we knew it like we were doing. So let's get us all there.
Let's all get to be like Raquel and know what we're doing.
Yeah, it's tough. Like I wasn't very involved in the first two WordCamp US's, and that was at the early days of doing it. It was the first two. So, we're all trying to figure out how to run a WordCamp at that scale, of 1,500, 2,000 people. And you get in these convention centers and they have the craziest like rules that you have to follow. And a lot of them are unionized. And like, I remember in Philly, like we weren't even allowed to plug in a power strip. Like to do that, we had to call the maintenance team, and the maintenance team had to come and plug that in because it was a union shop. And if we did that, we basically broke their rules. And so it just immediately like balloons the cost because of all these things you have to do. You have to follow the rules, but you need to find a space big enough, in a big city. You're almost always up against that stuff, which is really challenging. Anyways, it was a pretty fun event. I mean, I enjoyed it. Seeing, a lot of old friends making new friends. It really felt like, for me, last year, I felt like a test run of, can we actually have an event again? I was in San Diego, we all were masked up, and it was much, much smaller crowd. And it just felt like kind of a test run. Right. But this year felt more like a legit, like, hey, we're kind of getting things back. There was great conversations. I loved all the breakout spaces. There were just seating everywhere. Like, I mean, so you could be in the middle of it if you wanted to be, with people everywhere, or you could just, duck out and go find some place to sit and kind of unwind. Because I mean, many of us, myself included, are just out of shape of networking like this. So after a day or so of talking to people, you're just mentally like drained, you're just exhausted. I know, Raquel, you probably don't have that problem, but for me, like I get drained, and I'm like, I need to go like just chill out for a minute, like on my own or with my people just on the side, and kind of unwind, So I appreciate they had a lot of space for that.
I love the space they have with the view of the bay. Going down, that was great. Yeah, I stayed there a couple of times too. Being
around the water. They had all these Adirondack chairs kind of just facing the what was that, the Potomac there in DC. Pretty cool. But nice to see they're back, especially in the US. I mean, we haven't had a lot of WordCamps. There's been a handful. I think WordCamp is it Rochester this weekend in New York, I believe. Yeah. So, but they're really, I mean, all in all, this year, there's only been a handful in the US. I know we had Phoenix earlier this year that I was at. Yeah. So, I'm really hoping that next year they start coming back in full swing, and many of the locations and cities that we're used to seeing them, like Philadelphia, would be nice to have another WordCamp again. I know Phoenix is always right there at the front lines and always have been, but I felt like it kind of helped justify you could do it. Unfortunately, some people did get sick. I think that's just the reality of where we live now. It's going to happen, and you got to do your best to try to not get sick. But
stay home if you're sick. That's like the key
stay home
point.
if you're sick, and obviously
if you're home, please don't take 10 Dayquil and show up. Like it's not fair to everyone else.
That was really probably one of the more unfortunate parts, is just a lot of people got sick clearly right after the event. I don't know how I didn't, because everybody that seemed to have it I was talking to the night before, but somehow I got lucky. Knock on wood.
Myself
in the car. And
I got.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I was home for a week, then literally left to the Netherlands. Still got nothing. Literally until this week, I had some sort of head cold, but it was very, very just head coldy. That's it. Like nothing else. I was like, wow. Okay, Raquel.
In the chat, someone did. Birgit Olsum brought a point that besides, we were talking before, having people who can vet locally for the venues. And so like, but also she brought up a good point, or they were wheelchairs, right? And I will say that was interesting about Athens. And it's just Athens as a city is so old in Europe. Someone was complaining about the lack of wheelchair accessibility, but it's also like, it's in a lot of the city is an UNESCO heritage site. And if like, Brad, you were saying like, hey, it's unions. Well, also like in a city like Athens, like you can't move anything. Like, you can't move a brick without having to call like, some kind of historian or something. But that was interesting about like, also there's some of the parties. The Pride Party apparently was an after party at the Smithsonian. That's amazing. That it was at the Smithsonian. I didn't see that part.
Smithsonian was pretty cool. Yeah. It was very different from most after parties, right? Because one, it's at the Smithsonian, so it's just amazing stuff in there, and you want to kind of walk around and see all of it. Two, there was no alcohol, so I think they had like mocktails, or they had some interesting drinks, but there was no alcohol. And everyone still had a good time. Like I talked to a few people, but I honestly spent more time just going through the exhibits because I hadn't been there since I was a kid. So I'm over there like looking at all the dinosaurs, and they had one of the I'm a big fan of Easter Island, and they have one of the stone statues. There's only 2 in America, and they have one of them there. So being able to see that up close in person, like just the Hope Diamond was there, like just to see that stuff and hang out with WordPress nerds while you're kind of looking at these amazing.
That's kind of funny to have like a bunch of nerds hanging out, like, and we're like, oh, we're just standing chilling. Yeah. Oh yeah, we're over by the Hope Diamond. Come talk to us. Yeah,
by the Hope Diamond. There's a whole wall of like gold and like gold pieces. There's like an asteroid you could touch. Like cool stuff. Like in science and just history. And it was a cool venue for sure.
To that point, I struggle with it. Go ahead, Alfredo.
Oh no, I was saying like the dessert tables were really good too.
Oh god, I don't know how many of those little square brownie things, but I just any desserts I can just pop in my mouth, I'm guaranteed to eat about 10 times more than I should.
I didn't get to have any of it because of food allergies, but no, like I loved it. But for exactly your point, Brad, like I want to be there for the Smithsonian, and when I think of an after party, again, I want to connect with everybody. So it was a struggle for me. Like I was like, I want to see that. Wait, but I want to talk with you. But I want to see that, but I want to talk with you. Yeah. So like I personally feel like after parties are usually meant for everyone to like still continue to network and talk. So that was, for me, it was a struggle. Like maybe if that was bonus, maybe that was day 4. Like, hey, we're going to the Smithsonian, whoever wants to come. But like, yeah, so I'm like, and then
that's why they do conferences in boring places sometimes. I see conferences and it's like in Piscataway, Washington. Like, why'd they pick that? Because if they chose Vegas, no one would hang out. Like that's like, but I'm saying like that's like the balance of working when you go to these. Because if you're in Vegas, like, I don't know, I'd rather go shoot guns and drive monster trucks. But if you're there for work, but if you're there, because that's what Vegas is one of those places where you could do insane things, right? But like if you're there for a conference, like that's what you see people always complain about. Like whenever they have a conference in Vegas, they're like, I want to do Vegas, but I literally only have 3 days and I'm being, it's not PTO, I'm paid to be here, and it's always a tough balance. Yeah.
I think US has always kind of had a bit of a struggle with after parties, like getting that perfect mix, because you want to have it's a good point, Raquel. Like you want to have a place that's, promotes conversations. You don't want to go to like a raging club or something. I know WordCamp Europe, they're all about that, and that's great and that's fun, right? But in the US, we're a little bit different, right? We want to have a fun time, but you want to be able to like communicate and have conversations. I feel like it's either one or the other. It's like a place that's super loud and you can't talk to anybody. And I always lose my voice, so those places I try to stay away from, because if I'm yelling and having a conversation for hours, guaranteed I won't have a voice the next day. I'll just be gone. And I'm known for that. So I know to stay away from those situations. And then on the flip side, it's like, okay, well now we found a quiet place to have conversations, but then everything around you is so freaking cool. You want to go look at it rather than actually talk to people. So it's hard like to find a balance for that after party when you got, potentially, 1,000+ people that are going to show up. You want to have fun. You want to have a place for conversations. But it's, it's a challenge.
WordCamp Europe in Porto last year was perfect. Definitely had the dance club, like the cover band.
Right, you said that you loved
it. DJ, yes, but then it also had options for like quiet talk, like networking, all in one spot. This past one, Victor, you were there.
Oh yeah, I didn't go, but I heard from everyone. I looked at the club. I was like, I know that club, and I'm not gonna like it. Like I saw, because I said, oh, it's a mega club, and everyone's like, what do you mean? I'm like, Europe has these things called mega clubs. And there's like, it's like being in a room with just like Especially someone putting a speaker to your head and not letting you escape. Like I'm not into it.
I mean, I was into it. I mean, rumor has it Raquel was dancing on the countertops, and that's like usually how it goes. But like,
Sounds about right.
but then that's the only thing. I don't only want to do that, and I lose my voice too. So then it's like
Right.
you want that option to go. Then once you're done dancing on the table, to go then to like go talk at a table with somebody, and there was no option for that. So
Yeah,
that wasn't as fun.
it was also hot. I remember it being really hot, and like that night, because I was out and I was like drinking. I went to like a rooftop bar, and I remember everyone saying that like if you weren't in the club, you were outside the club, and it was super hot. There was nothing to eat really or drink outside, like in the area where the mega club was located. So yeah, and that's hard too, because like you were saying, Brad, like picking a spot near the venue. If the venue with like the National Harbor thing, that is a brand new construction where they can decide, obviously they built it for that purpose. If you're in like Philly, like we have the convention center here, you're lucky, right? It's from a market across the street. But then I know in New York, right? Whereas in New York City, when they had, not WordCamp US, but WordCamp New York, like, everyone has to get on the train and go like 30, 10 blocks, 20 blocks. It's very hard to find spaces like right next to each other in a place like that.
Big spaces. Yeah, that's a challenge. But all in all, it was a good event. I think everyone had a good time from what I see. I think overall, it's a really positive feedback. They did a great job. The presentations were all really top notch. It seems a lot of good feedback. NASA was kind of the big buzz at the event with their new the beta launch of their new site powered by WordPress. So I felt like everything was NASA, which is cool because, when there's big agencies and there's big, anything, big corporations, big companies, government, whatever, that are, publicly bragging about the fact they're using WordPress and how they're using it. That's good for everybody. That's good for all of us, So we constantly talk about how, the White House is running on WordPress, and it's probably one of the most, actively attacked sites in the world. And it's running WordPress, and now NASA's running WordPress. So it helps validate it to people that maybe if there are still people skeptical out there, maybe, I don't know if there are still people, but
there always,
I do think it helps validate it in some way. There always will be, right? But it helps. It's like NASA's running it. You really think it's not up for what you're trying to do? NASA's running it. And they're also,
are you smarter than a NASA scientist? Yeah. They're
smarter than a rocket scientist. I don't think so.
Yeah, because even when you look at a company like NASA, even the people who work in the marketing department are former I was a rocket scientist, and then I found out I liked email marketing. But you know what I mean? Like that's that kind of field. Like people want to work for NASA, and you end up with like a lot of eggheads. And I'm sure so you're smarter than 100 NASA people? Then no, then stop complaining about WordPress.
Well, let's switch gears a little bit. I want to talk about some full site editing, FSE, unless they've changed. They haven't changed the name of it yet, have they? It's still full site editing. I feel like
site editor. Yeah, it's site editor.
Yeah.
Full site editor. Sorry,
just site editor. Drop the full.
Oh, it's just site editor. So they have changed.
Yeah. Yes.
Can I go on a rant about how these decisions get made? Like we just pick terms out of the air, and then like a release or two later, we're like, you know what, we're going to completely change that term, even though there's all these articles about it, books have been written about it, people are blogging about it.
I'm going to talk a little smack about WordPress in general, like the community in general right now. One of the problems that we have in WordPress, and I'll say as WordPress as a product has grown, we still suffer, and this is my own made up word, from kumbayaism. Where kumbaya, everyone gets along, everyone's opinion is valid. But when you're building a product of this scale, it should be less about hey, cool, thank you for your opinion, but where can we look at references? And so one of the things that came up was we were talking about saying, okay, are we going to do, I was on the documentation the training team, and we were like, okay, do we name them lessons or courses? And I said, no, you should name them neither, because when we did the SEO research, all the top ranking sites for WordPress tutorials, WordPress, whatever, they all use the word tutorial. So therefore we should say tutorials and courses, because that's the language. But then, there's a big debate. Of course, automatic people, their words mean more. And so they wrote a big thing about it, and now we do courses and whatever. And we get outranked by every other training. So WordPress.org, which is authoritatively, and I don't know if anyone here works in SEO, if Yoast is on here, anyone from Yoast, they can speak to it. It's about domain authority, domain history, domain language, how many links are pointing to it. WordPress.org, for so many reasons, should rank higher than any other site, right? But it doesn't, because the keyword taxonomy is a mess, right? And that's the problem. We name things at WordPress. We don't think that deeply about it. It's like crazy. WordPress is the number one SEO tool, but WordPress.org is a garbage pile when it comes to SEO. It's terrible.
Yeah, I mean,
And that the site editor shows that.
Yeah, I think some decisions are made a little bit hasty. I always go back to like featured image because it's like one of the most clearest examples of, we all know the featured image you set on your posts, your pages, whatever. But when it was first built, it was all called, everything was called post thumbnail. So like all the code, all the functions, everything you interact with, are related to thumbnail in the code, and they still are, because again, a decision was made by a developer, and then at some point someone, decided we should change the name. That doesn't make sense. But all the code now is, basically wrong in the way it's worded. So anyways, I wish there was a little more thought up front on stuff like that. But anyways, let's talk about site editor, WordPress site editor. Newer feature in WordPress, right? In the last couple of versions have really brought it out and tightened it up. How are we feeling about it? Is this the game changer that it's kind of being set up to be? Is this the next iteration of WordPress? Is this really going to be something that everyone's leaning hard into, or is this going to be more of an edge case feature? What do you guys think?
I mean, it's in WordPress, so it's going to be with new installs, it's going to be a feature. A feature. Do you mean like more for agencies, or like for like?
I just mean if people are going to lean into it. It's definitely going to ship with the core themes, but if you don't use one of the 23 or 24, I guess it'd be 2024, or build use a theme that supports site editor, then you're just going to be using a block-based system or something else. So you still have to kind of make that intention decision if that's what you're going to use or not, right?
I think I was an early adopter of the full site editing and started working with it, and I will see and I see all the progress that has been made through, I guess, couple of years probably that it has. I personally like it. But I don't think it's a killer, because WordPress is so good that you can have, you can still attach to classic theme. You can still use a PHP. Nothing stops you from there. You can also do hybrid themes. You can combine, what you love from classic themes from the good stuff that the site editor brings, especially theme JSON. And then you can just go full site editing, which is also good. I mean, it's really fun to build. And it's how blogs are meant to be. You have a wide canvas. You have all these blogs. Be creative. So looking at through my eyes, I love it. I mean, it's really nice.
I think developers, when they, when hardcore developers like Alfredo are coming out saying they're really buying into it, I think that speaks volumes, because on the surface, I think people just see it as a drag and drop. What, are we competing with Wix or something, or Webflow, or like, what is the goal here? But the reality is it's bringing, a really needed feature set, or I should say expanding a feature set, right? Because it's just expanding the block editor to the full site experience, not just your content. So, that is that vision that Matt laid out years ago, to bring this full site editor. That's going to take a while to break the habit of saying full site, but to bring it to a reality, so I'm anxious to see it in larger implementations. Obviously we work more, with medium to larger scale organizations and enterprises. And, going back to talking about NASA, when you get these larger orgs or, corporations that kind of justify this can potentially work at scale or not, can really help validate features like this, for the masses, and I know obviously we're a little, I guess, edge case because we work with larger clients, and most people running WordPress are not, some big organization, but it'll be interesting to see how it's adopted or not adopted in the coming, year or so.
I'll say there was an interesting article from Mike McAllister, who used to be over at WP Engine. And it's on Twitter. I'll tweet it out real quick, or I'll retweet what he tweeted. So he has
anymore,
a
Victor.
full. Okay, no more tweet Xing. We're
I still say tweets.
I'm going to heat this. I'm going to sheet this. Okay, sheet it. So Mike McAllister has a theme called Build, like Ollie, I think it's called. That's the Twitter has Build with Ollie. And so, and I think this is a different debate. He was talking about he has a custom onboarding experience. So Ollie WP is being blocked from the theme, the WordPress.org theme repository. I would argue, I don't like the idea of on Twitter, he was saying, hey, I feel like, it would be so much better to be in the repository, but they won't let me in the repository because they won't let me have a great onboarding experience. I don't like the idea of a custom onboarding experience because it opens it to a lot of bad actors. Some people who own a lot of plugins would love to have an amazing theme onboarding experience and load all of our clients with these horrible options, and he didn't want to convert it to a plugin. But the article, he shared a blog post sharing, and I think he did a good job of stating all of the issues with with full site editing. And in this, I don't want to tweet the blog, or not, again, sheet the blog post out. WP Friday.
Is that a sheeting it? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because isn't it sheet? I'm sheeting. I'm making it. I'm cheating.
I hope that sticks.
I'm cheating myself on the WP Friday. All right, so I just tweeted it.
That's definitely the way you're supposed to pronounce it.
So
he talks about it out on the wall. See what sticks, right?
I'm cheating all over the place. So yes, so he talks about how. And Brad, I think you and I both have said this before. I like full site editing, and I agree with Alfredo. It's great. I don't think it's great as a blank canvas. I think it's great as a blank canvas for people who understand how the web works. When I've seen it be used by people who don't know how the web works, they'll like, and it reminds me of, recently, one of my things at work currently is our VPs are enforcing notes after meetings, and things with like generative AI and et cetera. It's very easy to make meeting notes and share them out with your individual team, right? But one of the things we realized was, oh wow, like some people don't know in Google Docs to not just make text bigger, but to use heading hierarchy so that it can be parsed better. And we didn't realize we had to teach a bunch of data engineers about HTML because data engineers don't know HTML. Data engineers know SQL, right? And so I think WordPress assumes a lot of web knowledge, right? And so I almost feel like, in my opinion, there needs to be like, hey, do you like HTML? And you're like, no. And it's like, great, here's the default setup. Because, people don't know this stuff. And so he talks about that, how the theme demos leave a lot to be desired. I feel like when we give the client limited access to FSC, or we give the design team access to FSC, depending on the client, then it's great because they understand it, right? But just like even with the block editor, we would make it where like only certain people can add new blocks, only certain people can edit the page. And I think those tools allow it to be a really great, for me, again, custom development tool. But as far as like starting from a blank canvas, I think we're kind of kidding ourselves that people don't learn HTML. And the reason I bring that up is when I used to teach high school kids to code, this was 2 years ago, most Gen Zs or Zoomers, whatever you want to call them, they do not think like we do. Oh, my phone broke. Let me debug it. Let me open it up. Let me go to a website. They will literally delete the app. So if they're like, oh, this website app isn't working, they'll just go and keep installing new website apps on their phone. And that's the mindset. So if they don't like this, they're not going to troubleshoot. They're just going to quit and they're going to go to Squarespace. And that's how Gen Zers work. And I remember teaching kids to code, and everyone say, why aren't we teaching them algorithms? And I'm like, because they literally don't even know what a file hierarchy is. They're inside of their phone. There's no file hierarchy on a phone, right? On an iOS phone, I mean, Android maybe. But I think that this article, if you read it, he kind of touches on that a lot. And I like it, but I don't think there should be a custom onboarding for all themes.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Like if you gave me a blank slate and said, make this look good, it would not look good. So, like I wouldn't be able to get it there. There's no possible way. So I love the idea of kind of having a starting point. I've always advocated for, installation profiles on WordPress. And this is something Drupal, I'm assuming, still does.
Drupal kills it.
Drupal.
I love it.
Yeah,
yep.
You could basically, when you're setting up Drupal, it's like, what type of website? Is this like a blog? Is this a media site? Is this a marketing site? Is this e-commerce? And then it says, hey, these are just things we suggest that you bring in, and it can set up an e-commerce site with a couple clicks, versus you trying to figure out, what do I need to install to do this? So I've always thought, that type of, setup or something in WordPress, I think there's something to that has been missing.
Well, that's why page builders are here.
True.
I also think that one pain is how you version control whatever the editor with, because on agency, we work with a bunch of people. Okay, so I'm going to build something on the editor, and now what? I mean, that stays on the database, unless I copy it, go to my editor, create my HTML file, paste the block or paste whatever pattern or whatever I did, and that's it. What I think I do, and it's the best way, is create patterns for that. And that's how I version control all my work rather than depending on the HTML itself, which was we do on PHP, right? We build all our logic on the PHP template, but now I think it's working on the patterns and all your logic goes there. But yeah, I agree with that. Just give a blank template and a bunch of blocks what you're going to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a real concern, just having, especially working with larger teams, larger organizations, or just a lot of people with their hands in the website. Like if you don't have guardrails, and Victor, we've talked about this on the show before, even at the block level, but if you don't have guardrails, you're going to end up having a website that looks like the old MySpace days, you know what I mean? With like music and confetti and dancing babies, and who knows what's going to show up because you're giving them too much power. Yeah, you're giving them too much power. If you give them a color picker wheel, it could pick any color that, the human eye can see, not necessarily just your brand colors. So you got to make sure you're thinking about that and say, look, what colors should they be able to pick? Oh, just our branding colors? Yes, that's all they should be able to pick. Maybe a few more, right? So you got to really think about that. Who's going to have access to these tools? Who's going to potentially be able to change your menu, your sidebar, your header, your footer, whatever, for better or worse, and make sure that they, at the very least, know what they're doing. And also that you have good backups in case they don't. But there's probably a market for that, right? Someone to build a tool that could help revision this stuff in a way, or maybe that's on the roadmap for WordPress too, to kind of hook in. So there's some type of revisions around full site editing changes.
Yeah. And I was actually we're working on a project, it's my small agency where we're using visual regression testing just to track essentially like all different versions of the site and how they've modified it. And we have it in a file store so that the content management team can go into the file store and look at any page historically as a visual interface. But it's a fully custom job, right? Because like essentially like we're going and using Percy, which is it's on our CI/CD. It goes and takes a screenshot of like certain pages, et cetera, each, major change. And then what we're doing now is we're listening for when there's like a major page change, like 1% or 2%. And so then it's taking a screenshot of that page so that if we need to revert it, we're like, here's what it looked like before. Now we have to and it kind of stinks because like, depending on the revision history of the site, right? Because like, WP Engine, I think it's like 10 revisions, whatever. Sometimes you say to the client, like, hey, we're gonna have to just rebuild it. Like, it's gonna look close, but if there was like granular, and that's why we told you to buy the patterns, because now we're gonna have to granularly like go through every single thing and fix the corners and change that. And that's why you need patterns. And that's also why, like, I think with FSC, and I think, was it Jeff made fun of me the one time? He was like, well, why do you even use WordPress if you're just disabling everything? And we have a list of things that we disable immediately when we fire up a WordPress website. And two of those are the block library, the third-party block library, and I forget the name of the terminology, but the third-party blocks. So things like Squidoo, Scribd. They have like, what's the video service that used to compete with YouTube? Dailymotion. There's a Dailymotion block. Does anyone even use Dailymotion anymore? And so we disable all those, and like we disable columns, we disable tables, we disable anything immediately that we just know is not meant for most client bloggers. Like a client does not need, in the blog, in the posts type, right? In their post type, they don't need columns. They should not be using columns on a blog, right? And so we educate them on that. And that's, I think, WordPress doesn't have it. And like you were saying, Brad, unless there is a profile onboarding, there needs to be some kind of like almost like a checklist of, hey, if you're a business, maybe disable these things,
Yeah, I put out a sheet the other day about tweeted a sheet. I don't know, about the site editor. I call it FSE, but and I think this is a larger, it's kind of beyond just this feature, but it's really around the marketing of WordPress and features, right? Like it's like, this is kind of the new hotness that's in WordPress. It's a new feature that everyone's excited about, and we want to get other people excited about it, right? Maybe it's clients, maybe it's friends, maybe it's just sharing, with the community at large, but we want to get people excited about site editor. It's like, where do you go to even show this stuff off? You know what I mean? Like WordPress, I just, has always struggled on the marketing side of like, great, we got this great new feature. It's a game changer, just like Gutenberg when Gutenberg first came out. But there's no real like concise place to say, hey, so and so, go check this page out, and it'll be a light bulb moment. You know what I mean? Like there's some videos people have made, there's some other things, but when you search site editor or even FSC, you just land on like documentation. And I'm like, I just feel like this is a problem. We need to get better at, as a community, marketing the features that are coming out in WordPress and why people should really lean into them and why people should give them a shot. and why people should give feedback and help test them and things like that. So I'm curious your thoughts on that, because I know it's easy to complain about this stuff and it's a hard thing to solve because it's marketing, and someone's got to contribute time to help out with this, and they've tried in the past and come up short. But how can we solve for this? What do you think? Do you think we have a marketing problem? Do you think this is an issue, or is it just me yelling into the void?
Well, marketing issues is what caused all the drama last week.
I don't know what you're talking
beginning
about.
of it.
Oh, but what's funny? I remember there was a WordPress. I was going to say, wait, Brad, are you sure? Let me go check the new WordPress.org homepage that was debated, and that some people said, why wasn't this done in 1 week? And so, which was some other drama. But if you go to it, when you go to click the second, how in modern design there's like a big hero, and there's a second hero. The second hero says, dream it, build it, explore the WordPress editor. So I click it and it brings me to Gutenberg, a Gutenberg demo, not the site editor. So there you go. That's a very confusing thing. Do you mean the post editor or the site editor? Which editor? And do we need to start using a prefix so we mention these things? And there is no, like you were just saying, Brad, there is no, on the demo on the WordPress.org homepage, it is still on Gutenberg. And when you click it, when you click explore the WordPress editor, it says, say hello to Gutenberg, the WordPress editor. Yeah, I've had people from Automatic, it say to me, sorry, no one calls it that anymore. It's the block editor. Well, I guess WordPress.org is still calling it Gutenberg, so I guess I'm not wrong. And so, yeah, this is like, and it's like, I guess like whoever said that the homepage should have been done in a week could have said, okay, let's do one more day to call it the site editor. But, people like get rushed things out. And yeah, I mean, that's funny. You say you're not wrong. Yeah, Brad, like that actually makes sense. And the only thing I say, I take clients to InstaWP. I go on InstaWP and I put together like a quick demo, disable a bunch of things. And that's the quickest way for me to share with clients, like, hey, here's how this would work without giving them access to a complete demo site. And InstaWP is pretty slow.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. You're right. Like you go to the Gutenberg editor, which I love the fact I can send people to that, and it's literally you're creating content, right? Like you can play with it, you can play with blocks. That's great for what it is, but that is not a light bulb moment, because if you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like I felt like Gutenberg had a little bit more going on when it was first released. I think there was some videos put out and stuff like that, but I just feel like there needs to be more of an effort around this. You're right, especially on WordPress.org. Like, hey, this FSE is where it's at. If you really want to get people to buy into this, we got to market it. We got to get people excited. We got to like very quickly and concisely show people why this is amazing. Not like a 30-minute, let's build a site type of video, like a 60-second, like, a reel or something. Get me excited about FSE or site editor. Why should I use it? Why should I care? Why is it better than the other things that are out there?
Fly to the Valkyries playing behind it.
Yeah, I don't know. I know it's all community driven, and I know it just takes time and people's time to kind of volunteer and want to do it. I'm just looking around. I'm like, it's basically like WordPress.org just sends you the documentation when you're searching for this stuff. And then everything under that are just all of these like marketing posts on pages trying to get you to click in to get their ads. And it's, so it's a lot of fluff, there's a little bit on it, but there's no real light bulb moment on any of the articles I was looking at saying, oh yeah, I want to know more about that. I want to do that. Like, so, hopefully we can figure it out and get more people involved. 'Cause I do think that is as WordPress is evolving and has evolved so much in the past couple of years, I just think it's a marketing thing. We got to continue to sell people on why WordPress is awesome and why these new features you should lean into, and we should be building things, or at least considering how FSE or site editor could work for us or for our clients. As we're recommending WordPress, we're not. Maybe it's not a good fit. There's a lot of options out there, but I hate to see people jump into Webflow and jump into Wix just because they don't understand. Oh yeah, WordPress can do a lot of that stuff now. Do a lot of that stuff now, more than that probably, but not always obvious.
I mean, Webflow cracks me up because the minute I forget, someone was on Twitter and someone was comparing pricing, and I've been noticing that more. I'm currently like operating as a fractional CTO for a couple startups, and when I'm helping them pick software, what I'm showing them is, so ActiveCampaign bills by the number of contacts. This company bills by the number of features. They all have their own pricing models, right? And so what I find interesting about Webflow, if you go beyond 5 users, you have to contact them for enterprise. In WordPress, I could add 50 people. Let's get 50 people in here. And I was actually like, wait, what? You can't. And I was like, the pricing. Yeah. Let me look to make sure if that's still the case. Yeah, you're only allowed 10 content editors for the $39 a month. Anything more than that, and you have to contact. And then there's only like 10,000 CMS items, and that includes every image, that includes every single like extra pattern, whatever. And so how many times, like on a WordPress website, I have clients who are just like, hey, can I upload these 1,000 photos and leave them up there? Not on Webflow without calling Enterprise.
Yeah, and if it says call to talk about enterprise, that price is going way up.
Yeah, that means it's going from $39 to $3,900.
Yeah,
enterprise
exactly.
is insane.
And you got to get SLAs and all this other stuff, which enterprises need, but most companies do not, right? So, but that's good for people like us because, like you said, hey, why is WordPress better than Webflow? Well, right there, you have limitations, and not that you can't go beyond that, but there's going to be costs associated with going beyond that, right? So you have to try to factor that into your budgets and what that looks like. Whereas WordPress, those costs are either going to be none or much, much less, right? So,
I mean, this just blew my mind. I didn't realize everyone's doing this now. For the top plan, you only get 2,500 form submissions. They're billing by form submissions. It's
so
an
if you get
HTTP
successful,
request.
you better cough up some more money.
I know. And I was like, and then like, that's why isn't WordPress saying unlimited forms, unlimited content, unlimited users? Like that's like WordPress should be saying, and listen, it's kind of been crazy this year. Like I was slower in the beginning of the year, but now I've made a couple connections. And when I show them WordPress, like, wait, why isn't this costing $1 gajillion? Like, because we're using a plugin and then we're going to just like build it out. Like what? And it's almost like some product managers get scared. Like this no, hold on a second. Like unlimited forms. I don't know. What's the catch? I'm like, no catch. It's just WordPress. Like, I don't know. Everything's been SaaSified. And now with, the Elmos of the world, going and modifying the way the software worked, the way the world worked, Twitter and everything worked before. Now we're sheeting all over the place. All these software companies are taking a cue and they're rate limiting things. And they're saying like, oh, you know what? Let's not make this free more. And that's why I think a lot of people, I don't know if you guys have seen this in the WordPress space, but in the enterprise SaaS space, we're talking about unsassing ourselves. We're talking about, hey, like, how do we, if literally people are going back to, is there an in-house CRM we could use? Like, we don't want to pay for a CRM anymore. Is there an in-house CMS anymore? Is there an in-house LMS? Because every time you rely on a SaaS, like a form system, if anyone's under a form stack, I think for the last time I looked, I get a lot of like people, like medical people. Form stack for a small dentist office is a minimum of $10,000 a year. And they say it's for HIPAA compliance. Whereas to make Gravity Forms HIPAA compliant, it's a couple hundred lines of code. And so it's like pretty crazy to me. And so I think WordPress could win in the new Elmo world, because in this Elmo world, and for anyone, I'm talking about Elon, where like we're talking about rate limiting and changing things and putting the screws to customers, WordPress could shine, and we're not talking about that.
It's just there's no real marketing head that I'm aware of. I know some people have stepped up in the past to kind of try to lead marketing. Yoast was one of them back in the day, and it just struggled because you're trying to market a community-led project, and who's making the decisions? Like, you have to have the decision maker, right? And you try to do it by community. It's so hard to get decisions made around that. I mean, like you mentioned, the homepage of WordPress.org and that silliness that cropped up, you know what I mean? And it looks way better than it did before, right? It looks more modern, it's more interesting, but there's no one really sitting there and all day in and day out thinking about how do we market this thing and how do we market the open source side of it and the features we're bringing and why it's better than some of these other areas.
And it's interesting we don't do that, because if you think about it, everything else has a lead who in the end is responsible. Like, the WordPress REST API, it's two people, right? Tim and, oh my God, what's wrong with my brain today? From Human Made.
Ryan McHugh. Yeah.
No, is it? No, I thought we worked together at, again, another person from when we were at WSJ, but yeah, but it's two people. No, it's people's, like, I remember people's like emojis or whatever, but so it's two people. So why with marketing are we not saying, okay, who are the marketing leads? And the same way, look, we get WordCamp leads for like, and again, make it like a nominated position. Okay, 2 years, this person drives marketing. Why is marketing seen as something that still has kumbayaism? Like, again, like when you design,
they've had leads in the past, but that's probably one of the fastest burnout I've ever seen on any team is the marketing lead. But
that's because the marketing team is still accepting input from too many people. The thing, and this is like, look, I'm not techno overlording on people, but it's this. the beauty of GitHub is if you don't know how to use it, you can't get involved. And I love that because it's like, hey, all you have to learn is how to type one line in the CLI, git push, right? And if you learn that, you're welcome. And I feel like with marketing, we should say like, hey, if you don't have a website with an email newsletter, with whatever, your opinion is not welcome until you show us that you've done that. And not welcome, but hey, your opinion is great, but if you want to contest something, we need to have some kind of governance, guys. Like, and that's the thing. Like, you look at like how communities are built, like Robert rules. Like, are you guys aware of like Robert's rules? Like, if you're in a community meeting where like people, whoever holds the stick gets to talk, right?
Of course.
And I'm not saying right, and I'm saying like not saying how can a bunch of people who like can build one of the greatest pieces of software to be popularized on the web and power the internet, not to get together and say, you know what, for like 6 months, this person's the lead. And we're going to, think about how we feed that person feedback, because of course you're going to burn out. The current marketing model is everyone's allowed to pile on that lead. That's not a job anyone wants. No one wants to sit around and be shouted at, by 1,000 people, right? But it should be the thing of like, how do we get together a team? And Courtney's here, which is great. So she says there are folks doing marketing efforts, but apparently not fully within the WordPress marketing team. The team is blocked frequently from actual participation or even basic record keeping governance. And see, that's what I mean. There's no governance in the marketing. It's literally just a bunch. And marketing in general, if anyone, I'm a data person and we work with marketing teams, like, at all my orgs, not at the journal, but like all these big orgs I work at, it's always marketing where they always like, I guess you get a lot of art people, like, and I'm an artist, like I've been an artist, musician, and I know how we can be when we're not in computer brain, right? And it's like, and maybe sometimes we need to say, hey, everyone, like we all understand that everyone is creative and wonderful, but like this is the only mission and we need some kind of governance around it.
I mean, I've been I'm the current Palm Booster president for my daughter's dance team. And I've been on PTAs galore. So I'm willing to help anybody with Robert's Rules of Order. Got the book. Yeah.
So you get it. Yeah. Especially I can imagine being a parent these days and having to maintain order.
That's fun.
Well, this has been a fun Friday hangout. I think before we leave, I definitely want to talk about Victor's pink sweatshirt, which I like. Calvin Klein.
I was going to plug.
I was style, dude. I don't have it, but you have style. I like.
What about Thunderscores? One shameless plug to Brad because we've been using it. We're playing with it. Thunderscores. If everyone doesn't know, like there is a full site editor boilerplate that is, and Alfredo's on it, and it's been started. And again, like I can't talk about all the projects we work on, but we've been doing full site editor in Gutenberg. We being myself and my small agency for 5 years, and we've done well with it and it's phenomenal. And as much as I do talk trash on, stuff sometimes, WordPress pays my bills, right? And I love it. So yeah. And I'm going to
definitely check out Thunderscores. I will tweet, I will sheet that out. Under the WP Friday hashtag. It's under the WebDevStudios GitHub repo, WD_F instead of S. But yeah, check that out. That's a good plug. I'm glad you brought that up.
And you spell it Z.
I still don't know where the F comes. I don't know why.
You know why it's Thunderscores? Because it's fun.
I know. Yeah.
We put the fun in Thunderscores. So this is great. I really appreciate everybody hopping on. It's been a really fun WordPress Friday hangout. So let's go around the horn. Just where can people find you online? Raquel, you want to kick it off?
Sure. I'm at Raquel everywhere I could possibly be. If not, it's at Raquel Karina. And I am on all the things, very much still on Twitter, Zitter, Shitter, both.
There's a family show. Sheeter.
We were just a bunch of like 12-year-olds on this show. Really.
Yes. And also DMs are always open. Humans are my fave. Do not be afraid to hit me up.
Raquel just said slide into my DMs, so have fun with that.
That's not what I meant. Oh dear God.
Alfredo, where can people find where can people slide into your DMs, Alfredo?
I'm always on Twitter too. I spend a lot of time. You can look for Alfredo Navas on Twitter. And my website, I wrote about WordPress too, and JavaScript and React, which I love, is ELPUAS. If you don't know, that's my nickname. That's how people in Costa Rica call me. So I use it. That's my artistic name. So yeah, I will put it in the channel.
Yeah, definitely tweet that out on the WP Friday hashtag so people can check it out with your blog and see some of your dev topics. And Victor, where can I get a pink sweatshirt like that? No, where can I find you on?
Fun to, if you just
Zara.
type Victor, if you type Victor Ramirez WordPress, it'll come up. Yeah, that's I'm very Googleable, which is very good.
You know, I actually ordered a all white. This is kind of ballsy, all white Calvin Klein hoodie, like a fashionable hoodie, right? But it's
Nice.
all white, and I was like, this is probably a bad decision. Like trying to keep. So we'll see if it makes
No.
it through the winter,
Do
unscathed.
it.
But it's all white.
Do it.
I'm trying to have a little bit of style. It's still a hoodie, but it's a fancy hoodie.
But Brad's been doing. Brad, listen, we're friends. If Brad's been doing CrossFit, you want to go shopping? I'll take you out, man. I love showing my friends some style. I love doing it. I do it for all my friends.
I don't know
We'll
if I
go
can
get you
rock
some
the
cool
colors
hype beast
you
gear.
rock, but
You know, we got
I
it.
like it.
We'll do what works for you. We'll do all black everything if you want. We're good.
I'm happy in my active wear. You guys
Yeah,
all win over me today.
Yeah, shorts, hoodies, I'm good there. So and I'm Brad Williams. You can see me on X for Williams BA. Always over
Cheer.
there. I'm still kind of active-ish. You know, I enjoy it because all the WordPress people, and I don't know where else to go. So we're still there. There's still a lot of us out there hanging out, talking online and stuff. So but definitely follow us, WP Friday hashtag. We'll be back at the end of next month. We do this every month. If you want to hop on, slide into my DMs and let me know. Happy to have you on the show and see what we'll be talking about next month, whatever craziness is going on in the WordPress space. But yeah, have a great, safe weekend, everyone, and we'll see you in October. Bye.
All right. Thanks, y'all. Later.
So I gotta stop this thing. There we go.